start us off?
All right, so exciting day for Ole Miss. A lot of really good players coming here. I think this is our best class. I'm not just saying that. I think this is our best class since we've been here of high school players. I think that's a product of a lot of things. Assistant coaches working really hard, doing a really good job. Really good general manager, Billy Glasscock, putting things together. And I think that that's a product of now a lot of winning seasons. So as these guys went into high school, all they've done is see us win. And so, third for their time, third winningest program in the SEC, sitting alone, behind Georgia and Alabama. So I think that's critical. It's critical for players to see that over time, that they know a place wins. So with all that, I think it's just a really exciting class of a lot of players, a lot of different spots, and some positions of need. And, again, for the third year in a row, signed the number one player in the state, which is huge.
But just before we get into discussing the specifics of the class, obviously the CFP show came out last night, and you guys are ranked number 13 right now, and they made it seem like there's not going to be movement among teams that aren't playing this weekend. I know you shared some thoughts on social media. Was just hoping you could give us a little insight onto your thoughts on the first 12-team playoff and what needs to change in the process going forward.
Yeah, I think probably to surprise you with this, this press comes about signing day. I understand the question. I've been very vocal, social media-wise with some things, and just want to keep this press conference and not steal from these players, and that this is a huge day for them.
You touched on it about the top recruit in the state. Just from when you got here to now and the success you've had the past couple of years, what have you seen or the credit to y'all's success with in-state kids and keeping them here?
Well, like I said, I think there's a number of factors there. I think that, we've been dominant, over their time basically in the Egg Bowls. So, a lot of in-state kids, between us and state. Programs have been extremely different. I'm not taking any shots. I mean, the win-losses since we've been here of the two programs are dramatically different in very different directions that the programs are headed in. So I think they see that. So that knocks out state, in that for the kids. And then I think more kids now stay here where before they were leaving because they felt, okay, I've got to go wherever it was at the time here, LSU, Alabama, Auburn, like a J.J. McGeese, because, I want a chance to be able to win more and get the things they want to achieve. And now they've seen you can do that here. So, and I think staff's done a good job. I think Kelvin Bolden, who has a lot of connections here, has done a really good job with in-state players when they come on campus here and developing relationships. He's been very critical to that as well.
Is this a reflection of a change in philosophy by you guys as far as wanting more high school kids, or just the way it worked out?
Well, I think you got to have numbers because of just turnover now. I think you're going to see massive roster turnovers around the country. And we had a lot of seniors also. But yeah, ideally, I've said it, just because our system adopts and moves, I think, as well as anybody what we do. And we do that whether it's offensively, defensively. We're always changing, always evolving to the systems, to the rules, to NIL, to collectives, to everything, to portals. The best way to build a roster long term is not to go to the portal every year. That's not the best way to do it. I'd love to be at a place where you can sign, top five high school classes every single year, and then it's a lot easier to retain them because once you have them, it's easier to retain, and even in the market value, a lot of times get an easier, hometown discount once they're there. That's not been able to be the case. Maybe someday it will here at Ole Miss. It's not been the case. So we had to go address needs. We had to go portal, and that was the only way to, continue this success and hopefully win this, postseason game. And what, 3 of the last 4 years have 10-win seasons. We gave the list to the players the other day when we were talking about, not in the playoffs, the value of a bowl game and winning a 10th game. And I don't have the list here, but the names of teams in the last 3 or 4 years that have won 10 wins, they're all your national name brands in Ole Miss. So that's pretty exciting.
Caleb Cunningham continues the streak of in-state kids. I guess just what do you like about his game in specific, and how much of an instant impact could he be next year?
Yeah, he could be huge. That was that was really big. He's a great player. That at one point obviously looked like he was leaving the state and got him back. And great kid, great family, and in a position of need next year with losing so much there. So we have very high expectations for him.
Currently, no quarterback in this class. Is that something you're going to keep an eye on, or are you happy with where things stand, or maybe something you'll look into with the portal as well?
Yeah, I think we're, as you guys know, but we're kind of new age in analytics and salary cap and roster management. And I think a lot of people just still kind of do the same thing. We got to sign this many people at this many position and, pay them whatever it takes. And I've said now for 2 years, I think you got to be really careful with that with high school quarterbacks, in my opinion. So, sometimes we're on a guy and, the price gets too high. And that's the world we live in now. And you got salary caps. And I just think when you put a ton of money into that, it's just such a transfer position that usually doesn't play in year one. And look around the country, what you're about to see coming up here, you're going to see a lot of these high-priced guys from a year ago go in the portal. So they just blew all that money. So in my opinion, once these guys, or one that we're recruiting, the price goes too high and the other school wants to pay him all that, it just doesn't really fit in the salary cap model of retention over time.
I'm curious, and you brought it up, most people don't even talk in these terms, but is the price tag higher in the portal or on high school guys? Does it vary by position?
It varies by everything, and whatever it's worth. I've said once the revenue share was coming, and now that people know, even though they don't technically have the money right now, they're going to operate like they do in this portal, and I think you're going to see, outrageous prices in this portal. It's great for players, but I think you're going to see guys get paid way more than you could ever imagine, because now everybody has this money that they believe coming in. And again, there's no structured system. It's not like the NFL where people really, everybody got great general managers and have this nailed how to do it. And you're going to have people that say, okay, well, we got to get a player, so here's the market value, but we're just going to go pay double, or some donor's going to jump in. Or a coach can be on a hot seat and, overpay a player. So these portal guys are going to make unbelievable amounts of money. Now, that's just my opinion and what I think is already being floated out there to these kids. What I know is already being floated out there.
To follow up on that, you're right. You guys that's kind of been your identity, your ability to adapt to the different systems and stuff. So are you operating now under the assumption that revenue sharing will be in place for the 2025 season, or is there any chance that people make that assumption and it doesn't come to fruition and it's more difficult to manage at that point?
No, I think that's happening, unless there's, more than me. I think that's happening. I just don't think that people are going to have the money till like July. So they got to figure out there's a gap there. So, but no, I think it's definitely coming, and I think that's what people are operating on. I know it's what people are operating on, and why these prices are going where they're going for these kids that are already, they're not even in yet. They're going to be in here but what's being told to them, whether it's our kids by other schools already, are numbers that no one's ever heard of for players that haven't even been great players.
With this rev sharing that you're anticipating, do you break it down like each position room gets X amount of dollars, or how you operate within that rev share?
Well, we do. Ours is we have percentages by position, of our overall cap, much like you would in the NFL. I don't think a number of teams don't do that. I think they just go, we want this player, how much does it cost? So, and we did it in this high school recruiting. There's a number of players wanted to come here. We were in good shape with them, and then the number goes too high. And we just don't do that because we look at the big picture of everything, and then when you take it from there, it's going to come from somewhere else down the road or another position. So I think you'll see probably like marquee players, whether it's recruits or but portal guys that aren't going to all go to like the old days where, man, they're going to all go to the top schools, that have the best chance of winning. You're going to see some guys kind of, I think, go to all these different schools now that, are going to, school B is going to, even though it's not a traditional national team or maybe a great team coming back, they're just going to pay twice as much as someone else, or is it everybody else for a guy? You're going to see a guy go to some places that might make you, kind of different than what you're used to seeing, I think.
Blaine, obviously there were some question marks in the running back room this year. With Shakai Mosnight coming in, just what kind of impact do you see him making as a freshman?
Yeah, I think he's got tremendous upside, really big, physical running back, which we missed this year not having. And, as you relook at the year, I think that was a big difference, in a lot of critical situations, where big guys kind of fall forward, make some extra yards, and obviously end up having to go to a D tackle for a lot of those situations. We have high hopes for him.
You got a huge flip from a guy like Devin Harper recently. What does it mean to kind of just get a flip from a program like LSU, take a top player in the state away from a place like LSU?
Yeah, I just think it shows how our programs changed from when we got here. How that just wouldn't have happened because you just couldn't do it. You really couldn't do it with an in-state kid, keep him here over them a lot of times. But the ability to show how we win now and, that you can come here and achieve everything that you can at these other places where, they weren't sure of that before.
How are your staff adjusting to, say, a budget? Pretty good, or is it different, more difficult?
Well, we operate that way. We've operated that way for a while. We've looked at it that way, even though there wasn't revenue sharing with the cap. There's really not a cap, just so we're clear. Like this idea that they have that there's revenue sharing and then it's this cap and everybody's the same. That is not what's happening. There's still collectives. There's still even donors outside of that. Just saw a very notable one. Get arguably the best player in the country. So, don't think that this is like the NFL where it's figured out in this revenue sharing. There's a cap and everybody's equal. That's not what's happening. Just sounded good when they presented it to people, I think.
Going off of Harper flipping, but just the offensive line in general, I felt like a position of need heading into next year. Do you like how y'all are starting off with rebuilding that room?
Yeah, I think these are some really big linemen that have huge upside. More traditional, big-time SEC type of linemen. So that's really good because sometimes when you have undersized guys, you can only take them so far.
I promise this isn't to try to trick you into a playoff question, but I'm curious here. Obviously in the SEC, you got a lot of programs that are really dedicated to trying to win at a high level, the collectives that'll be on top of rev share, right? So is that going to create even more parity in the league where it's going to be harder to avoid having 3 and 4 loss seasons, which apparently keep you out of the current playoff format?
Yeah, I think that what you saw this year in the SEC, in the amount of multiple loss teams and 3 loss teams, I think it's going to take a little bit of time for fans to get used to that's what's going to happen. I think that, with bringing Texas, Oklahoma, with the ability of portals, so even when your rosters are good and they're coming back and, people pluck guys off of that, and so some of these teams, that were traditional. Let's just take Georgia, for instance, like they lose a great linebacker, like the stuff that before where they could kind of just keep the collections, like the old Alabamas, they're getting plucked too because of their backups. So, like there's a linebacker there and he's playing at Kentucky. So I think that this is probably what you're going to have to get used to as fans, teams having multiple losses in this conference. And you kind of tricked me into it. It's why it's just different. It's just totally different. And these comparisons of other conferences and ACC and Big 12, I mean, it's just like, you might as well be in different leagues, not conferences, different leagues. Like here's the NFL, here's the SEC, here's those few Big 10 teams, and then here's everybody else. So you're going to see it in the draft. It'll be different, like it always is with the SEC, the amount of kids drafted out of here and there. And so it's really a bad system. Here you go. You got me going. It's just a bad system. It's a bad system. And you got people in there in place of it. And I don't know, they gave me the list of the coaches today. Any of those coaches ever been down here in the Deep South into these stadiums and played in these games that are on this? So how do they even know? How do they even know what it's like to have to go win in these stadiums, in these places, and on the road of teams that they say, well, these teams are 500 teams. And then we have, the week where the 3 favorites all lose on, the senior day and night in 3 of the hardest stadiums in America to play. It's much different than where these other conferences go and play. They're, 6-6 teams that they got to go play, or 5-5 teams at the time. Just totally different. And you got to get up for it every week. It's a lot easier when you got to get up for 2 games a year, to get your team up.
Just generally speaking, how does this recruiting class impact or affect what you may or may not be looking for in this year's portal cycle?
That was a great job, by the way. You completely got me off of my goal here. No, that was good. I like that. I would have done the same thing. What was the question?
Just how does this recruiting class impact or affect what you guys may or may not be looking for in the portal this year?
It doesn't quite as much because these guys are younger. Now, sometimes if you're looking in the portal and they're younger players with 3 years of experience, but which I think is going to be more of that too, because you're just seeing, you're going to see a ton of freshmen go in. It's because of the money part of this aspect. And so there'll be a little bit of that, what you have here, and then you're going to look at, and some of even what did you get last year, because now you're going to go look at guys with 3 years left, and they're going to go into your sophomore class. So you're just going to get ready for a giant free agency all over the country of places. And once they announce the revenue sharing and announce it, that there's this much money, a lot of parents, a lot of kids, they may be perfectly happy where they're at. They're going in.
Is it a coincidence that you have no JUCO players, or have y'all decided that's not a very good talent pool for you anymore?
It's just, I think the portal, as you said when it first started, would affect junior college players around the country. Not as many taken. I don't have the analytics on that. I bet it's going to be down because guys know they can go get college players that they've already seen play in, Division I, or Power 5. So, and for us, we had so many portal players, and we really wanted to focus on getting a lot of really good quality high school players. Because again, this is the way to build a program long term and successful, and you'll see that over time. I think in 5 years, you see, okay, what are the teams with the best records over 5 years? The traditional teams that usually are there, they're going to usually have been built from quality high school players. Again, because that'll be your retention and your ability to withhold them when they're free agents every single year, and keeping them, you know, versus having to go get them from everywhere.
Yeah, just on Cunningham, back to him real quick. He was very complimentary of you when he was signing, and it, like you said, it's not easy to flip people from Bama or SEC powerhouses. Could you speak to your relationship with him and maybe what the journey's been like to land him a little bit?
Yeah, he's been here a lot. You know, like I said, great family, great kid. And again, just when you're here over time, when you're at somewhere over time and you've had guys have great success, and here's Trey Harris, I think this is still leading the SEC in receiving yards, which is unbelievable. I think he played 5.5 games. You know, so they see the success that you're able to have at a place. So when they come, they can envision, okay, if I stay there, I see it happening. You know, I see, you know, the whatever number 2, 3 passing offense in the country. You know, that stuff helps.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys, thanks.